Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books from my childhood. So I got the idea for this when I was doing Venus Abbott Elementary Tag because it reminded me of a lot of things that I read as a kid. I had a hard time remembering a lot of the things because it was a long time ago, but some of them came back to me and I figured I'd talk about them. So these are in no particular order and it is an interesting mix genre-wise. My most read genre as a kid was definitely historical fiction, which is something that I do not read hardly ever as an adult. But one of the very first series that I remember picking up is the American Girl series. If you're not familiar with this, basically each girl had a series about her life, and they talked about girls from different backgrounds and different parts of the US, and they also have dolls. That's probably what you've heard of the American Girl dolls. All of them have books as well, and they've like vastly expanded what accessories the dolls have now and whatnot, but this was definitely one of the very first series that I started reading, and I don't know how many American Girls there are now, but at the time the ones that I remember were Addie, Felicity, Molly, Samantha, Josephina, Kit, Kirsten. I think that's it. Who knows how many there are now. And also each girl has like a ton of books. Like I was looking at them earlier and there's a lot more than I thought they had originally. And I don't know if those books are still being produced or not, but that was definitely one of the first series. And like I said, historical fiction. So I was in private school from 2nd to 5th grade and they had a very large library, which included a lot of the American Girls as well as the Dear America series, which is another that I read a lot of. Again, I do not know how many there are total, but there were a lot, plus there were also spin-off series. So there was like the Dear America, which was typically from the perspective of a young girl, but then there was also, I think it was My Name is America, where they had the perspective of young boys, and then there was a third one, and I don't really know what the difference between all of them was, but I remember reading a lot of those. And I remember the very first one that I read was about the girl in the Titanic. That one had stood out to me because at the time I had seen Titanic so many times. My grandmother had the VHS of it, and so I was kind of interested in it because of that, and then I realized how many more there were, so I just kept reading them. Like American Girl, Dear America is about a young girl in a different time period in the US, different regions of the US, different time periods, some of them during war times and things like that. And I found it a pretty easy to digest series, but I was also an avid reader, so I don't know how other people would feel about that. I don't think this series is still going on. I'll try to find out some information, but yeah, I read a lot of historical fiction as a child. Speaking of, one of the books that I was assigned to read, I don't remember which grade I was in, but one of the books that I was assigned to read was Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry. I read this book so many times because I liked it, it was interesting, and then when I like ran out of books to read, I would just reread it over and over again. I don't know if it was just because I liked historical fiction or because I was just reading what was available to me at the time, but I read a lot of those books. One series that I really liked when I was, I guess, a little younger, I must have been because this is a very, very old series, but Frog and Toad. I don't remember all the details, but I feel like these two were best friends and they would just go on adventures. How does the series end? I don't know. How many books were there? I don't know. I think these might have been assigned reading as well. Yeah, I don't remember the details. I just remember always having one of these with me. I think these were ones that I borrowed from my teacher because we would read some of them in class and then I'd be like, okay, well, I want to read the next one, so give it to me. That was a fun one. I also really liked The Amazing Days of Abby Hayes. I think she was in middle school. What I liked is that there were illustrations in these books and they had her journal entries that were written in purple pen. So I thought those were cool, but this is like just a little girl writing in her diary about school and family and things going on like that. This was also another really long series. I don't even think I finished any of these, if I'm being honest. I'm pretty sure it's a chapter book, but it was nice to still have illustrations while reading a chapter book when you're sort of in that in-between age. So I really like this one. I know for a fact that I never finished the series and I just want to know what happens at the end. And I don't remember really what it was about, but I really enjoyed the Spiderwick Chronicles. The funny thing about this is these are written by Holly Black, author of, what is it called? Cruel Prince. Is that the new series that everybody's talking about? She used to write children's books. I really like this series and I feel like I was reading them pretty consistently, and then I don't know if I was waiting for the next one to come out and then I just forgot about it, or if I just couldn't find the next book in the series, but I never ended up finishing it. Don't remember what it was about, except for there were siblings, I think, maybe 3 of them, and they got mixed up in some fantastical world and shenanigans. But I remember really liking the series, even though I never finished it. Now I'm curious to see how many books there ended up being. And the last series that I want to talk about, I know for a fact that this one was assigned. We read the first book in class. I was in 6th grade. And for some reason, at the school that I went to in 6th grade, I was only there for half a year, but we had 2 English teachers and I liked them both. But I do remember reading this series, and the first one is called Among the Hidden. Sort of a dystopian where there's like very strict population control, so you can only have 2 children and then 3rd children are taken, right? But there are some families who have 3rd children and have hid them from the government. With it being titled Among the Hidden, we're following a family who has a 3rd child, and he discovers that there are other 3rd children around. And I think this was like a 6-book series. I know I read them all, but I do not remember how it ends. But I remember finishing that first book in class and I was like, I need the next one. So I made my dad go get the next one because I needed to know what happened. But this one was a really good one, and it's so interesting to think about reading dystopian in 6th grade. Because how old are you in 6th grade? Like 11, right? And I'm sure we had to do the whole, you know, reading comprehension and breaking down themes and what is this symbolic of, and I fucking hated reading comprehension, so that none of that shit ever stuck with me. But I remember just really enjoying the series because the stakes were so high, because it was like, what if he gets caught? What if all these other kids get caught? What's gonna happen to them? Are they gonna kill all these children? At 11 years old, that's pretty high stakes. I really like that series. Now I wanna look up the ending though. Anyway, those are some of the books that I really loved as a child. Let me know if you've heard of any of these, if you've read any of them, what some of your favorite books from your childhood are. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.